The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, I think you and pretty much everybody else here and throughout the country believes that convicted sex offenders don't deserve special treatment or privileges in prison. And yet Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, received perk after perk in prison. In July, she had a 2-day interview with your deputy and President Trump's former defense attorney, Todd Blanche. Just days after that, Maxwell was transferred from a federal correctional institution in Florida to a minimum security camp in Texas, which she, as a sex offender, would normally be ineligible for. At this new facility, as the ranking member talked about, and by the way, it's nicknamed ClubFed, we've heard reports that she's been afforded special privileges: puppy time, private workouts, personal mail, secretarial services. Attorney General Bondi, does a convicted sex offender like Ghislaine Maxwell deserve special treatment and privileges in prison? Yes or no?
Let me be crystal clear on this. No. And
Thank you.
let me keep going. No, let me keep going.
Perfect. Well, I
did not know she was being transferred.
I asked you yes or no.
She was not transferred to a lower level.
Mr. Chairman, please stop the clock and remind the witness of the rules. One rule she needs to understand.
And I'm glad that we're agreeing. So when we're agreeing, we can move on to some other things. But I want you to know that every time she does get these perks, and it's been publicly reported, that the folks she's abused, the survivors who are sitting here, they see themselves as being denied justice. They feel re-traumatized. And I'm glad that we agree on that. But she should not be in that prison. And she needs to be moved back to a maximum security prison as soon as possible. But what she has told another committee here is that she won't cooperate with them unless she gets clemency from Donald Trump. It's just crazy to consider that she can be wielding this kind of influence within the administration. But that begs the question, who ordered her to be transferred to the minimum security prison that she was ineligible for? Who signed off on the special privileges? Was it Mr. Blanche? Was it one of your other subordinates? So please, can you tell us who sent her there, since you don't agree she should be there?
I said I do not agree she should receive special treatment. She was transferred, I learned after the fact, to the same level facility, and that is a question for the Bureau of Prisons. I was not involved in that at all. The same level facility, I don't know why, but you know, instead of talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, who hopefully will die in prison, you should be talking about Irina Zarutska.
I have a couple
who
of
died on a subway.
Right, and I absolutely—
You don't talk about that.
I have been talking about it and actually helping with these issues. But we're going to move back to you.
I bet we are.
Yes, of course, because you're here to testify. That's what the whole point of this endeavor is. So of course we're moving back to you. It is all about you. So as we've heard, she took the fifth in response to every single question in that committee hearing. And her lawyer dangled the offer of clemency. Should Donald Trump pardon or commute her sentence? Should she be released from prison, yes or no? You said you hope she dies there, so I'm hoping the answer is no.
I already answered that question.
Good. I'm very glad. I really like this bipartisan agreement about what should happen.
Well, when it agrees with you, but you don't want to talk about Irina Zarutska. You don't want to talk about
I talk about
murdered
her all
by
the
a
time,
violent crime
but
offender
I am not
in
here
your
to testify before Congress. You are. That is your job today.
You're
That's what you're getting paid for.
with attack.
So I want you to know that your own DOJ employee, he's recently been demoted and had some other problems, advises on pardons. Do you think he will be advising Mr. Trump on any kind of clemency or pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell?
I'm not going to speculate, and you couldn't even identify properly. That's why you don't want to talk about Irina Zarutska. You couldn't properly identify her relative.
I absolutely
it's embarrassing.
Have been, and her family, by the way, appreciates all of the condolences, all of the help, everything that our law enforcement in North Carolina has been doing to help her family. Her family feels well treated. Thank you, and I yield back.
The exchange you just watched wasn't simply about prison placement or administrative paperwork. It was about trust in the justice system and whether power and influence can shape outcomes behind closed doors. The public needs to understand the stakes here. Ghislaine Maxwell isn't an ordinary inmate. She was convicted in connection to one of the most disturbing trafficking scandals in modern history, one that shook confidence in institutions because of the number of wealthy and powerful figures tied to it. When someone with that profile appears to receive different treatment, even the perception of special handling becomes politically and morally explosive. What unfolded in the hearing centered on two core questions. First, whether Maxwell was given privileges that would normally be unavailable to someone convicted of her crimes. Second, and more importantly, who authorized her transfer and why. Those are not procedural nitpicks. They go to the heart of transparency. Americans expect the justice system to operate on rules, not relationships. When a witness acknowledges that preferential treatment would be unacceptable, yet claims no involvement or knowledge of the decision, it creates a vacuum where doubt grows. That vacuum is what drove the intensity you saw. The questioning wasn't just about extracting a name or assigning blame. It was about drawing a clear line between institutional responsibility and individual accountability. If no one at the top knows who made a decision of that magnitude, the public begins to wonder whether oversight is real or merely symbolic. And if someone did know, but responsibility is diffused across agencies, then it exposes how fragmented authority can make accountability difficult to pin down. There's also a broader lesson here about how congressional oversight functions when it's working as intended. Hearings are not trials. They're political arenas where narratives collide, where witnesses defend decisions and lawmakers try to reveal inconsistencies or gaps. Sometimes answers come cleanly, often they don't. But the process itself forces issues into the open, where the public can evaluate whether explanations are convincing or evasive. Another important layer to understand is the emotional dimension raised during the exchange. Survivors and victims connected to these crimes aren't watching this as an abstract policy debate. To them, the perception that a convicted figure receives comfort or leverage inside the system can feel like justice being diluted. Lawmakers invoking that perspective aren't just making rhetorical points. They're channeling a constituency that sees fairness not as a technical standard, but as a moral one. The back and forth also revealed a familiar dynamic in modern political hearings, the shift toward competing storylines. One side attempted to keep the focus on Maxwell and institutional responsibility. The other redirected attention towards separate crimes and broader law and order themes. This is not accidental. In contemporary political communication, reframing the subject is often as strategic as answering the question itself. For the public, recognizing that tactic helps separate substance from messaging. Ultimately, the takeaway isn't that a single hearing produced definitive answers. It didn't. The takeaway is that moments like this expose how fragile confidence in public institutions can be when transparency feels incomplete. Whether one views the responses as reasonable or insufficient, the responsibility falls on Americans to remain engaged, informed, and willing to evaluate what they're hearing beyond partisan framing. If you believe accountability matters, no matter who holds power, stay informed, stay critical, and continue demanding clarity. Subscribe, engage in the discussion below, and share this analysis so more of the public can understand not just what happened in that room, but why it matters beyond the headlines.